Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd really love that. If you're returning, how you doing? We have a few things to discuss today on this channel. But before I get started, let me introduce myself. Hello, my name is Autumn, and on this channel I like to discuss current events, whether happening here in the United States or abroad in other countries. I do have a Patreon channel. The link is in the description box below. And over there, I like to talk about current events as well as go down into some rabbit holes. And when you sign up over there, you do get a free trial for a week. So please join us over there. We do have great fun. So today, what we're going to be discussing is there a possibility? Okay, now just broaden your minds for just a moment here. Is there a possibility of currency and banking reset? Have you heard of something called XRP? I personally have not been following anything that has to do with XRP, but this was sent to me, this video, and I was like, well, that's interesting. It's intriguing. Okay, let's listen. Apparently, okay, we are at the end of a 100-year cycle, and currency and banking resets are happening. Okay, that's, I didn't think something like that could happen. So let's just take a listen, because this sounds really very interesting.
So why is Trump trying to acquire Canada, rename the Gulf of America, and if you haven't seen it, there's a bill in Congress to rename Greenland Red, White, and Blue Land. Yes, there really is a bill for that. Why is he doing that? And what's it have to do with XRP? See, we're at the end of a 100-year cycle, and we're going through a currency and banking reset. For the last 50 years, about 1971, U.S. dollar hasn't been backed by anything. Before that, it was backed by gold. Since 1971, the dollar really hasn't been backed by anything other than the agreement that was made with the Saudi royal family to trade oil in dollars for all countries. So example, if you were Zimbabwe, you had to get U.S. dollars to actually buy oil if you're Zimbabwe. You couldn't buy oil in Zimbabwe currency. So you either had to exchange that money, which cost you money, for U.S. dollars, or open up a U.S. business and generate U.S. dollars so that you could then buy oil. It's been a very difficult arrangement for a lot of countries for many, many years. That's ended. U.S. dollar is no longer the petrodollar backed by oil. It's no longer the world reserve currency. And we're moving into a system where all currencies will be backed by real world assets like gold, silver, resources, deuterium mines, gold mines, real estate. See, small minds can't see past the cover story of he's doing everything for his ego. If you look at the fact that we're going through a global reset, all countries, all currencies are going through a reset, and you understand that all tokens and all currency is going to be backed by sovereign assets that the country owns, you'll understand why he wants to acquire Greenland, which is real estate, change the name to Gulf of America, and perhaps make Canada the 51st state, which makes it more real estate to tokenize on the XRP ledger to have us have more wealth. For the new kingdom of America, I wouldn't be surprised if he went after Mexico too.
So now that we had Liberation Day, right, on April 2nd, and when it occurred, everyone should have celebrated, right? Did you celebrate? I know a lot of people did, and they were like, okay, great, this is what's going to happen or what could happen. And I know especially a lot of people were like, oh, I make less than $150,000 a year. We're finally going to get those tax breaks and stuff like this. We'll have more money in our pockets and stuff like that. But take a listen to why more people should have celebrated.
Whatever you think of Trump, his economic plan makes complete sense. The US has 36 trillion in debt. In 2025, they will spend 6 trillion, but will only collect 4 trillion in revenue. So they need to borrow 2 trillion, and this will increase their debt to 38 trillion. Trump's economic plan is based on 3 levers. Number 1, cut expenses by 1 trillion, which is Doge, Elon Musk. He's targeting waste and fraud, like social security payments for people who are 150 years old. That is just fraud. 2, increasing revenue by 1 to 2 trillion through, number 1, tariffs. They will increase tariffs from 50 billion to 500 billion target. People will say, but other countries will retaliate. They will not be able to do it. The US is the biggest customer on earth. They consume 20 trillion every year. They are the biggest importer. They import 3 trillion every year. Plus, the current tariffs is actually not fair. Why should US cars entering Europe faces 10% tariffs, while the European cars entering the US just pay 2.5%? It's not fair. And because of the tariff changes, it now makes economic sense to build factories and businesses inside the US again. That means more jobs, means tax-paying businesses, and more foreign investment coming in. He will also increase revenue by deregulation. He will remove unnecessary regulations and rules, making it easier to do business, so business can grow faster, generate more tax revenues. He also make this gold card, which is offering lifetime US residency for 5 million. I think at least 1 or 2 million individuals globally can afford it. So if just 10% of them, if just 100,000 people buy this card, that's 1 trillion in incremental revenue. The third lever is he will reduce taxes. If he successfully cut 1 trillion in waste and expenses and add 1 to 2 trillion in revenue, the US will have a surplus. They will have more money than they want. So he will cut taxes. For individuals, anyone gaining more than 150K, he will make them pay 0 taxes. And on corporate taxes, he will go down from the current 21% to 15%, compared to the European average of 22%. France average is 25, I think, and Germany is 30. So at 15% corporate tax, the US will become one of the most business attractive countries on earth. Bottom line, this is exactly how a government should be run, efficiently. Because when you eliminate waste, the money can actually go where it is actually needed, to the elderly, to the sick, to people who cannot work. And that is the real purpose of government, to protect the weak. Very few countries have the political will to do it. It takes leaders with backbone, charisma, and clarity of vision. Do you have leaders in your country pushing for real reform, or are they talking about non-relevant side topics? And let me know if you think Trump's plan is bad. Let me know why, because I think it is just common sense.
And before I go, so have you ever heard of a man by the name of Victor Davis Hanson? Well, if you haven't, this man does a very good explanation of why the tariffs that Trump is, putting forward, I'll say that, like no one else can. I mean, the way that he describes it, it's like, okay, now I understand. It's one of those. But the question here is, are tariffs really tariffs? Were they preemptive initially? Were they punitive? And he answers a lot of the questions that we all have. So take a listen to what he has to say, because I think that a lot of your questions will be answered as well. Ciao.
April 3rd, Donald Trump announced it as Liberation Day. By that he meant we were going to be liberated from asymmetrical tariffs of the last 50 years. And it was going to inaugurate a new, what he called, golden age of trade parity. And yet the world seemed to erupt in anger. It was very strange, which brings up another question. Are our tariffs really tariffs? That is, were they preemptive? Were they punitive? No, they're almost leveled on autopilot. Whatever a particular country tariffs us, we reciprocate and just mirror image them. In other words, it's their choice, not ours. Hello, this is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Signal. April 3rd, Donald Trump announced it as Liberation Day, and by that he meant we were going to be liberated from asymmetrical tariffs of the last 50 years. And it was going to inaugurate a new, what he called, golden age of trade parity, greater investment in the United States, but mostly greater job opportunities and higher paying jobs for Americans. And yet the world seemed to erupt in anger. It was very strange. Even people on the libertarian right and, of course, the left were very angry. Wall Street Journal pilloried Donald Trump. But here's my question. China has prohibitive tariffs. So does Vietnam. So does Mexico. So does Europe. So do a lot of countries. So does India. But if tariffs are so destructive of their economies, why is China booming? How did India become an economic powerhouse when it has these exorbitant tariffs on American imports? How did Vietnam, of all places, become such a different country, even though it has these prohibitive tariffs? Why isn't Germany, before its energy problems, why wasn't it a wreck? It's got tariffs on almost everything that we send them. How is the EU even functioning with these tariffs? I thought tariffs destroyed an economy, but they seem to like them. And they're angry that they're no longer asymmetrical. Apparently, our people who are tariffing us think tariffs improve their economy. Maybe they're right. I don't know. The second thing is, why would you get angry at the person who is reacting to the asymmetrical tariff and not the people who inaugurated the tariff? Why is Canada mad at us when it's running a $63 billion surplus and it has tariffs on some American products at 250%? Doesn't it seem like the people who started this asymmetrical, if I could use the word trade war, should be the culpable people, not the people who are reluctantly reacting to it? Sort of like Ukraine and Russia. Russia invaded Ukraine. Do we blame Ukraine for defending itself and trying to reciprocate? No, we don't. We don't blame America because it finally woke up and said, whatever they tariff us, we're going to tariff them. Which brings up another question. Are our tariffs really tariffs? That is, were they preemptive? Were they leveled against countries that had no tariffs against us? Were they punitive? No. They're almost leveled on autopilot. Whatever a particular country tariffs us, we reciprocate and just mirror image them. And they go off anytime that country says, it was a mistake. We're sorry. You're an ally. You're a neutral. We're not going to tariff this American product. And we say, fine. Then the autopilot ceases and the automatic tariff ends. In other words, it's their choice, not ours. We're just reacting to what they did, not what we did. A couple of other questions that I've had. We haven't run a trade surplus since 1975, 50 years. So it wasn't suddenly we woke up and said, it's unfair, we want commercial justice. No, we've been watching this happen for 50 years. It's been going on. And no president, or no administration, no Congress in the past has done anything about it. Done anything about what? Leveling tariffs on our products that we don't level on theirs. It was all predicated in the post-war period. We were so affluent, so powerful. Europe, China, Russia was in shambles that we had to take up the burdens of reviving the economy by taking great trade deficits. 50 years later, we have been deindustrialized. And the countries who did this to us by these unfair and asymmetrical tariffs did not fall apart. They did not self-destruct. They apparently thought it was in their self-interest. And if anybody calibrates the recent GDP growth of India or Taiwan or South Korea or Japan, they seem to have some logic to it. There's a final irony. The people who are warning us most vehemently about this tariff quote the Smoot-Hawley Act of 1930. But remember something. That came after the onset of the Depression. After. The stock market crashed in 1929. That law was not passed till 1930. It was not really implemented to 31. And here's the other thing that they were conveniently not reminded of. We were running a surplus. That was a preemptive punitive tariff on our part against other countries. We had a trade surplus, and it was not 10 or 20%. Some of the tariffs were 40 and 50%. And again, it happened after the collapse of the stock market. In conclusion, don't you find it very ironic that Wall Street is blaming the Trump tariffs for heading us into a recession, if not depression, when the only Great Depression we've ever had was not caused by tariffs, but by Wall Street?